What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Twink Revolution. I'm Sam.
And I'm Gian. And here we are.
Yeah.
We're back. We haven't done this in a while. I guess people don't probably realize, but the last two episodes we've really recorded were a while ago.
Yeah, except the Dan Cohen one.
Oh, yeah. No, the Dan Cohen we did, but that's like a guest one. But the last episode, you and I just like sat next to each other, recorded an episode of us just yapping, is like a month ago now almost, right?
Yeah.
This is a
Q&A
Q&A
don't
episode.
want to listen to our Q&A, or like our ones that aren't us. So.
Yeah, no, we bring him in. So if that's what brings you here, welcome back.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. It's just us gals now. You know, kind of gather around, pull up a chair.
We're gonna dish.
Yeah, we're spilling tea.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
We're gonna talk.
Every time I try and veer into queer camp, I just feel deeply uncomfortable. I feel like I'm appropriating a culture that's not mine.
It's your inner homophobia.
It is.
Why do you hate yourself?
Oh, well, so many reasons. Let me tell you all the way. What do we got, an hour to run? Oh.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of news, right?
Yeah, we got some fun news. So we just got 2 new contributing editors. We have Mila and Esperanza, both of whom have written for the Twink Rev website and have also been guests on the podcast and are also part of the More Marks Than You Can Handle, which we need to do another one of those soon.
Oh, yeah. I think we're doing one on the 20th, aren't we?
Yeah, maybe, but that's not confirmed.
Okay.
So follow us on
TBD.
Twitter if you want to know. But they're basically... Do you want to explain what a contributing editor is? Because I think people think it just means editor.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's mostly that they are going to, bring their own work to us, and that they're sort of able to say what they want to write about.
Yeah.
We're not commissioning pieces from them. They're commissioning their own pieces.
Yeah.
And so they'll be helping to influence the sort of just overall direction. Joining River, of course, who's our boy River, who's a contributing editor as well. So it's kind of nice, and we'll obviously continue to play host to lots and lots of other writers.
Right. We shattered that glass ceiling.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I think it was. Mila said, like, you're not allowed to accuse us of misogyny anymore. And then Esperanza said, and yes, you're not allowed to say any transphobia allegations anymore either.
Yeah.
So, there you go. We're done. We've done it, fam.
Yeah. But you can do all the Slavophobia accusations, because that's okay with me.
Yeah. And violence against Italian ex people is fine too.
Like a soccer game, it's okay to yell, like, fag at the players, because, I mean, they're hot enough that they could all be gay.
It's true. If you caught our live stream the other day, you would also have heard that this is I guess another milestone. We did our last ever live stream from San Francisco for now.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, probably the last episode we'll record from San Francisco. We might have one more in here. I'm not quite sure, depending on our guest scheduling.
Yeah.
But otherwise, the podcast gear is all going into a suitcase shortly and moving out to Wisconsin.
Yeah, we're getting the fuck out of California.
Yeah.
Which is good, because it's a horrible place.
Yeah, no, I'm ready. I'm ready for a change. And so we are changing, which is exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm glad to be out of SF.
Yeah, that's why we weren't recording for like almost 3 weeks, is because we were out there getting set up. And the setup's pretty sweet. You're going to see we're going to have a brand new Twink Revolution global studios. Our soundstage for like faking moon landings, doing cyberbullying. If we ever need to like film a hostage video with like naked basement pipes, I feel like we're ready for that too. It's a basement. That's what we're talking. We're talking about a basement.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a kitted out basement. We're really going to make it our own.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting. So stay tuned for that. So if you tune into our live streams,
on Twitch,
you're not going to see
twitch.tv/TwinkRev.
the kitchen shades anymore, which is good. You're not going to hear weed whackers on the episodes anymore either.
Oh yeah, no. Well, I was planning on actually just stealing these curtains and not like returning them to the landlord.
Oh, I love that.
And then just like recreating this exact shitty backdrop.
Yeah.
That color is going to be described as like renter's yellow. I'm going to paint a segment of the wall just around the camera view, that color.
That's horrible.
Yeah, and then put up this ugly blind thing, and it'll be perfect. The perfect recreation.
It'll be like if gays did like redecoration of the hostel studio.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what's going on. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited. Everyone keeps saying, gee, isn't it going to be so cold? Wisconsin, winter. And the answer is yes, it's very cold. But what they don't realize as well is that San Francisco building standards and landlords being what they are, nobody's ever insulated a house in San Francisco. So there's a quote that's misattributed to Mark Twain. I think it was not actually said by him, but it's like, the coldest winter I've ever experienced was a summer in San Francisco.
Yeah,
and it's true. It's kind of a windy and damp place.
There's so much black mold.
Well, yeah, and then they don't insulate houses.
I remember when we came back,
cold as shit
after like 3 weeks of being gone, and it's like you just walked into the place because it's just like you could taste the like black mold moisture in the air because it's just like there's no good windows and it's very damp and it's partially underground.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah. So anyway, that's some life updates, I suppose.
Yeah.
Who else has been going through it though? Has really just been having a hard time with just all the changes and the personal struggles.
Meghan McCain? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. Now AOC.
Yeah.
Queen of the squad, our progressive champion, our hero.
Yes, queen.
Yes, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has. She's gaslighting the shit out of us.
Oh, yeah. No, I just saw a video where media was asking her about Ted Cruz. She said Ted Cruz
had tried to have her murdered.
Yeah, and she's like, that's not what I said. And he will literally show the tweet, and she's like,
quote.
And it's like, yes, you did say that.
Yeah, no, she denied it. Literally, somebody asked her about an exact quote, verbatim, from Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, that's not the quote, and then walked away.
Yeah.
And it was, that's not the quote, and I stand by what I said.
Yeah.
And then she walked away. It's just like the unreality vortex around her is getting sillier and sillier.
It gives me like Kuwaiti baby vibes where like you utilize, because I know Mila, which her piece is Untenable Trauma of Politics.
Untenable Politics of Trauma.
Is doing the rounds right now, but she has the point of like the Kuwaiti baby thing, how like people don't want to challenge.
I know people quite know what that story is because it's Gulf War I, not Gulf War II.
That's true. And most people who listen to us weren't alive when either of those were happening.
Correct.
Like myself, I wasn't alive either.
So the idea being that there was tearful testimony from, was she a nurse, like a Kuwaiti nurse or something?
She was just like a young girl.
Was she? I can't remember. I can't remember what the fuck her story was.
She was a teenage girl.
Yeah, saying that she had personally witnessed the
Iraqi
army, yes, pulling babies, premature babies out of incubators and leaving them to die on the floor.
Yeah.
And she's sort of sobbing. It's a gripping testimony. Not a single word of it was true.
She was like an embassy person's daughter who was trained by PR to go to like, I think it was Congress and testimony. And that's what helped justify the Kuwait war involvement of the U.S.
Right. Yeah, just that kind of like, put it this way, a very vulnerable, raw, emotional appeal, just being used to manufacture consent for a specific political objective that the entire establishment already had decided they wanted to do.
Right.
What does that sound like? That's weird.
What's going on right now in America besides like the nonstop coverage of Congress people's emotional trauma? When it's like people have been showing the stories and even like fully like what has been said, it kind of keeps changing where people were like, she wasn't even in the building that had the protesters in. Well,
and people are just so keen to make excuses there. Just like, I don't know. Everyone's talked about this at length, so I don't really want to recover too much ground here, except to say her actual personal trauma, and whether that's genuine or not, and whether she's really scared or hurt, don't give a shit. I do not care. There's no reason to invalidate any of that. She says it's true, that is true. The problem is that politicians using the House floor as therapy during a just unprecedented time of misery for most people.
Oh yeah.
Is disgusting, for one. Just out and out disgusting. Then the fact that this whole fucking Patriot Act 2 electric boogaloo kind of thing is like happening. Everyone's a domestic terrorist now.
Right.
It's the specter of white supremacy lurks around every single corner, and you better fucking get ready to start drone striking people for doing a microaggression.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting ridiculous. And it's basically just news blackout on everything that Biden's doing right now. Like,
Biden's doing things?
Yeah, but they're all
How would I know?
So it's been revealed that it's the way they're doing the money for people for COVID. People actually, more or less people will get money under Biden than Trump because they're making it like there's so many regulations around it.
Yeah, they're means testing it. It's $600 or whatever. It's $1,000, maybe $1,400, maybe for Pell Grant recipients who start a small business in an underprivileged community for 3 years.
The media has also switched tunes around the discourse of the ICE child encampments, where they're no longer concentration camps. They're like
overflow centers.
They're overflow centers, and it's good because these children need someone to take care of them. It's like, oh my God, like what the...
It's care centers.
And then also...
For separated minors at the border. Not concentration camps for children in cages.
They're also just ended the full troop withdrawal from Afghanistan, which is supposed to happen by April, because the Taliban, we can't trust them. And now they're also pushing for like the Somalia withdrawal and all these things. So,
and the Yemen withdrawal seems to be murkier and murkier.
Yeah.
So I think when I saw the first news of that, the idea that the idea that Biden was going to, revisit our involvement in the Yemeni conflict. Sounds like a good thing, but you were looking into this and it sounds like it's a little bit sus or a little more complicated than all that, right?
Yeah, there's a lot more context, and it's like, even if the U.S. doesn't give any weapons, you've given billions of weapons, or billions of dollars.
We're still going to keep giving weapons to Saudi Arabia, right?
The U.K., France, and Germany are all still giving massive amounts of weapons, and it's like, of course we're not going to do it. It's going to be like a little proxy bitch state. It's like,
right. And who do you think they're buying the weapons from?
Right. Or like Israel can still sell. Like,
well, that's how we famously would get around congressional bans on weapons sales. We would get Israel to go do it for us. Iran-Contra was through I believe an Israeli intermediary.
I love that.
So that's great. I just think the world is going really well. And I'm just glad that we've come together and now we're smoking a cigarette together in bed and we're all just fucked.
Yeah. There's also, the Congress had an entire evening of testimonial about their feelings and thoughts around the event.
Oh, God, that was beyond satire.
Yeah. And one of them was Rashida Tlaib, who brought up not really connected trauma at all, like death threats and like horrible things said about her family, which like I think a lot of like left-wing people get, like it's like,
no, absolutely.
But she then later said in a thing, I wasn't at the Capitol. I think she was back in Michigan. So it's like,
that's okay. Neither was AOC. So it's fine.
It's like, then why are you talking? Like, we're just
processing trauma.
What are we paying you? Like $100,000 plus a year? It's like 170, right?
I don't know. Yeah, something like that. It's plenty of money.
It's just ridiculous.
Well, yeah.
Go to therapy. This isn't what Congress is for.
Yeah. And sorry, I was sort of launching into a rant, but yeah, AOC increasingly right. The narrative is just to basically overstate the danger she was in to make the trauma she's experienced and maybe has really, is really expressing, to make that make sense.
Yeah.
But we can put it this way: she could have been traumatized without necessarily being in a lot of danger. And that's fine.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just, scary things happen in your life, and yeah, they can be horrible. The way people process those is not really anybody else's business. Whether they happen to derail the entire business of the United States Congress in order to really talk about like the fact that a policeman knocked on her door very loudly in a separate building.
Yeah.
And the fact that I mean, or rather, like, that would be fine. That would be a thing to be scared of. It's what's fucking me off is the degree to which the story just keeps turning into, you tried to have me murdered.
Yeah.
I was there and I was terrified, and, you know, I was running for my life. It's like, well, yes, you were running in your life from nothing. And then people are like, well, there's tunnels under the cars. Yep, never, nobody got anywhere near those.
Right.
And don't forget this, you know, Capitol Police or the Secret Service, whatever, did start just shooting people when they got anywhere near any lawmakers. So
right.
Don't worry, you are in no danger.
She's using it as a cudgel to have any like policy push. Like there was like the censorship thing, and it's like, oh, I don't want to work with Ted Cruz because he tried to get me killed, so I won't work with you. You can quit your job if you want. It's like, that's not taking anything seriously. You're making the entire spectacle about yourself when that's not your job as a representative.
Well, and then her campaign team or whatever sending out mass emails to her email list saying, you know, yet again, unprecedented time of despair for most of America. And she's sending out emails requesting that her supporters go and report tweets and Facebook posts that were sort of diverting from the narrative that she was, you know, almost murdered by Ted Cruz.
Wow.
Isn't that great? Isn't that a good use of like our time and resources?
Grippian.
Yeah. And then Marjorie Green Taylor. What's her name? Marjorie Green Taylor?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Fucking her name is. She's like been just taken off all the committees or whatever because she's too dangerous.
I haven't been following. I just kind of like see it on Twitter and like I don't really care. Like,
yeah, whatever.
There's not really
partisan.
The U.S. is already so fucked when it comes to like the government system, where it's like, okay, well, cool. Like none of you really worked for me anyways. It's like, that's okay. I guess you're just gonna like eat apart and just like accelerate the contradictions, which I feel like at this point is the only way you're gonna have any sort of important change. Like I don't think you're gonna vote anyone, and that's clearly a failed tactic. And I think things are just gonna get worse, and that's what's gonna sadly make things better. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I think it's the pulling together for a win that the Democrats are capable of doing when it's literally a sort of like, just to, like, I guess here's the problem, right? Sort of so much of American politics is treated as a, just this like sports game, right? Which everyone's sort of cheering on from the sidelines, and there's two teams on the field, and you've got to play by the rules. You've got to play fair. There's these beautiful norms. It's about sportsmanship.
Right. The
Democrats will occasionally play dirty to pull together for a win, like this one, right? Where they're saying we're going to, you know, use our powers, and we're all going to get together. And what are we going to do? We're going to sort of like do a symbolic gesture against some shithead right-wing congressperson.
Right.
They would never pull the same trick on, say, like, I don't know, healthcare, you know, pandemic relief. Let's say even like the Iraq War.
Yeah, it's just lib on lib violence.
It is.
Like all the right wing in America are just libs of like a right wing
aesthetics. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all the same. Like there's no true conservative like in office in the U.S.
Right. Unlike in Russia.
Yeah. Actually, a great tie.
How was that a segue?
Well, I have a great one. So AOC, you know, really traumatized by regime change attempt in the U.S. Apparently doesn't care. She follows Juan Guaido and does not follow Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela.
Yep.
And she follows Alexei Navalny and does not follow...
the self-appointed president of Russia.
Yeah, does not follow the Russian presidential Twitter account, which is like...
I bet she would have followed Michael Jackson, the self-declared king of pop, instead of Prince, the actual king of pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? No respect.
But this is like just more and more counter color revolution types happening around the world right now. And of course it's Russia, because Russia bad, Russia mean. Like,
well, and we're we're complete campists, right? We just uncritically support Vladimir Putin, because he represents even a minor threat to U.S. hegemony. And so we just, we sign up for anything Putin ever does. Like, just talk to us about it. That's what we're here. That's our project as American communists. Supporting Vladimir Putin is what we're into.
Yeah, and now we're going to take a cutaway break sponsored by the Russian state of a Crimea travel commercial. Crimea, travel here. No,
Yeah, wonderful Crimea. It's Russia. So anyway, clearly, whatever the critiques of Putin, yada yada, fucking yada. The funny thing is, yes, all the pearl clutchers who were telling us about the Cheeto bad man in office in America, just lining up to love Navalny whose politics are to the right of Donald Trump's.
Oh yeah,
like he's a pretty spooky guy in terms of his kind of ultra xenophobic, sort of far right nationalist rhetoric. The thing he has going for him is that he's probably much friendlier to U.S. interests. That's his main selling point.
Yeah, everyone loves to pretend Putin, who's not a communist or socialist or anything, because people are like, oh, well, you are defending him against Navalny. It's like, that doesn't mean he's a communist. But he's like not the Trump of Russia, because he's
kind of the Joe Biden of Russia.
Kinda, yeah.
Except popular.
He's like the plurinational candidate, while like Navalny's like, we need more white European immigrants and no more of those cockroach like Muslim Central Asian immigrants. Like he did a commercial for his campaign where he was killing cockroaches with a gun, and it was like a gun rights ad and an anti-immigrant ad all tied in, but compared into like insects.
Yes, comfortable. So this is the man that is going to hearken in a new generation of freedom in Russia.
Where 4% support.
Yeah, not a popular politician. And yet if you were to sort of flick on your TV or scroll through the Twitter of your politicians and your media class, you would believe that this man was just leading a popular uprising against Putin, who there was a wonderful headline I loved. It was something like almost half of Russian youth disapprove of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Which, if you were to state it another way, would be a majority of Russian youth support Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
It was literally the real story there. The man is popular. You can think he's horrible. That's fine. Like, I don't really, it's not really my place. I don't live there. But I mean, the biggest mistake, I think, in interpreting Russian domestic politics would be to believe that he's just a sort of typical strongman leader and a dictator. He is not. He's an incredibly popular politician.
He went down 1% from like 65% support to 64%. And that was before Navalny protests really took off. So he's not really losing support like the media wants us to pretend he is. It's like other like things like Venezuela or these other elections were like, oh, well, they're just massively, they can make any crowd look huge. And they always ignore the other crowds. Like, because these are all happening in the cities where there's a much higher class or a more like liberalized Western youth population. And a lot of them do have genuine issues with Russia and the Putin government, but a lot of them were just being like dragged in to this thing where I think it was, I forgot her name on Twitter, but she mentioned how like youth are kind of dragged into these protests as like cannon fodder to be abused by like the right-wing powers.
Right. Well, and it has to be contextualized within the fact that the U.S. would love nothing more than regime change in Russia.
Yeah.
Basically put his way a sort of a strong and independent Russia that is not hew to American global policy is just an inconvenience at best and actually an economic threat most of the time. It might not have escaped your attention that the U.S. has decided to start flying sort of nuclear bomber drills out of northern Norway, I believe now.
Oh, I didn't see that. No.
Oh yeah, no. We're basically just amping up some like nuclear confrontation shit. We're just gonna like have some possibly nuclear armed bombers just like flying out of Norway, just near the Russian border, just to prove that we can, just to remind everybody that we're there. Isn't that nice?
Also, Navalny's not the opposition in Russia. The real opposition's the Communist Party of the Russia Federation. Yeah, which is like, there's some opportunism and stuff in there, obviously, but like it's more like a social democracy kind of party at this point. But it's still the opposition party, and
Well, yeah. So Nikolai Bodarenko, who's a Communist Party member of their parliament, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And kind of hot, honestly.
Yeah.
I think he's quite handsome.
Yeah.
He got detained, right?
Yeah, detained by police for basically observing the protest, and
he was fined, right?
Yeah, he was fined as well. But
right.
People were trying to paint that he was protesting, but according to his party, he was just there as an observer.
Sure. Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
Yeah.
He's I mean, I feel like it just gets ignored, right? Yes, the Communist Party is the second largest party in the parliament. By quite a long, I mean, they're quite a long way behind. To be clear, United Russia, whatever, Putin's party is just overwhelmingly popular.
Right, but I think it's also important that United Russia is kind of like a centrist party in the sense that it has a broad range of views within it as well.
They're kind of a unity. I mean, they were like a unity ticket, right? The whole idea was like take a broad swath of all the kind of libs and glue it together into one party for either not being a communist or not being like a far right ultranationalist.
Yeah, like they've had people in like the United Russia party say that it's actually good for children to like come out as gay to their families. That shows like trust within the family structure and stuff. So like,
sure,
there's a broad range of like, like on social issues and cultural issues and like even economic issues within that party.
Right,
it's ignored completely.
But there's, I mean, and the thing is, I thought I would have to sort of torture a metaphor to explain this to an American audience, except you don't. Think about the fucking Democratic Party.
Yeah,
the Democratic Party is this giant kind of unity ticket of like a smear of like everything from left liberals to like kind of classical liberals and a bunch of like right-wing neoliberals. Like a party that can contain both Hillary Clinton and, God forbid, fucking the Squad and like Joe Manchin or whatever, and those like shithead like blue dog Democrats, whatever. Like that's a similar trick, right?
Yeah.
Not really a trick, or rather it's a similar like political agglomeration where you throw together everybody who's like national interest and markets, which is kind of that's the Putin line. Like that's what they are.
Right. And I think it's also, there was a recent EU kind of Congress testimony from one of the Irish socialist candidates who's in
Claire Dury or something. Her name is.
Of course, it's Irish. They're always like the ones good on this. But she basically pointed out like there's so many political prisoners that get no recognition, and then suddenly this like right-wing xenophobic guy who would never do anything for the left. Like I think he's explicitly said he wouldn't help like political prisoners on the left in the country. Basically gets all his attention. It's like she mentions Julian Assange, where it's been 10 years and no one said anything. They don't give a shit. And then there was the guy, the Catalan rapper who was in Spain, who's basically being put into jail for 3 years for bad mouthing the royal family and terrorist supporting language, which is like, I think it was like Catalan separatist stuff. And it's just like, why don't we sanction Spain? She mentions. And I'm like, if we're going to be logical, like we should be sanctioning like every fucking country. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, let me go on record and saying, fuck the House of Bourbon, fucking Prince Philip, the whatever, who the fuck's in there right now? I don't even know who the king of.
I don't know.
Who's the king? Oh, King Felipe. Yeah. Fuck him. Do you want to get some digs in it? The Spanish royal family. Shittier royal family, even the British one, which is already inbred Habsburgs.
Right.
Imagine being that French. Imagine being a French royal family ruling over Spain. How shitty can you be?
I'm just astounded in how many fucking royal families there still is in Europe. Like, doesn't Denmark have one? And like Sweden and Greece and all these places. And I know they don't have like lots of power in them, but just like,
look at this Anderson Cooper looking motherfucker.
He looks like he's inbred. He has like a weird cleft palate.
yeah. Felipe VI, you're on notice.
Yeah.
We do not like you. We do not respect you. I think have we done it? I think we've probably insulted the Spanish royal family now.
I love it.
Is that enough? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we should try.
We should maybe try harder.
Let's go book a flight to Spain
it,
and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Oh, fuck off. They're also okay. Wait. Sorry. Now, just because I opened the Wikipedia entry to get a look at him, so he's the third and only son of I guess Juan Carlos and Princess Sophia of Greece and Denmark. These inbred motherfuckers never stop, do they? So it's the House of Bourbon, I guess. Bourbon. The fucking family of like Louis all the Louis of France. These fuckers, when Spain was just a vassal state of like Catholic France, this is that arm of the family, and then just mix in a bit of the like. So Prince Philip, the Queen of England's husband, is another like princeling of Greece and Denmark. Then the Danish royal family, of course, are all mixed in there. These are just like, this is the weirdest fucking family. They will not stop having sex with their cousins.
Right. This is what
when Southerners do it, it's considered yokelish and backwards. When rich old fucking aristocratic families of Europe do it, suddenly it's culture and you're not allowed to insult them for it.
Yeah. I also love all the like America haters, and it's like, of course you can dislike America, but all these like Commonwealth like people and European people, like at least we were ballsy enough to like fuck you to the monarchy. Like Canada and shit still have like domination from the fucking monarchy, and these people like, oh, you're the bad ones. I'm like, you guys are just losers. Not our listeners, but like the ones who support the monarchy, because like at least we were ballsy enough to do that. That's more revolutionary than most of these other places have done.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like good sort of Republican sentiment,
right,
should just reign free within the left. I feel like just overt hostility to these people. So anyway, I don't know what this Catalan rapper did. Sorry, that was a bit of a digression. You have to remember, I am the personal property of a shitty monarch, and therefore I'm very resentful about it every time it comes up.
I just don't like old people. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
It's true. Overthrow the gerontocracy.
No, it was over his lyrics.
Sure.
In his music, he was bad-mouthing Spain's king, Juan Carlos, who's not even the king anymore.
Really? Was I insulting the wrong person?
No, this person I think was dead. The one he was
bad-mouthing. Is that the father? I don't know. Sorry, maybe should have. I was going to do research, but I just don't care, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Juan Carlos is the father of King Felipe VI, who's the current king. Well, there you go.
What do these people do? Just take money from people? Are these the real welfare queens?
Yeah, they absolutely
queens?
are.
Yeah,
they literal welfare kings and queens. And they do not drop their crowns. So.
At least we get reality TV shows of our royal family, the Kardashians.
Exactly. And they kind of pay their own way through like makeup endorsements and shit like that.
And like the Trump dynasty, at least they were kind of like embarrassing or hilarious.
Good tweets. Yeah.
Yeah. And we had a hotter queen, Melania.
True. Yeah. May she reign forever. Yeah.
Well, Russia's not the only place that's having some fun counter-revolution shit. Myanmar, a country that no one knows anything about, is also having a coup, and we're all told we need to care in America right now, apparently.
Yeah.
The media is paying way too much attention to a country like no one. I'm pretty sure like most of our grandparents were like, do you mean Burma?
So yeah, Aung San Suu Kyi has been just a cause célèbre of kind of like New Yorker reading liberals in America forever, though. It's always like people are like, oh, I went to a benefit dinner at Rutgers in honor of, and that's so yeah. She's the freedom lady, right?
She goes back and forth. She was the freedom lady when she was useful to the U.S. as the possible like opening up the country for foreign relations, and then when she started getting closer to China, that's when we had the whole like Rohingya genocide thing come up, because the military who's in opposition to her were like executing a bunch of like the non-recognized people, the Rohingya, who kind of to antagonize her, because they're not very popular within the population because it's a
The
mostly
military isn't, or the Rohingya?
the Rohingya.
Yeah.
It's a Burma majority country, and she didn't really do anything. So the U.S. heightened it to make her look bad because she was doing close relations to China with the One Road, One Belt initiative.
But it was a Belt and Road initiative.
Yeah.
The Silk Road
The
initiative.
The junta, who's in power as well,
Who's now seized power.
it's
Again.
also had a very close relation with China throughout. It's basically Myanmar or Burma, whatever. It will change its names.
No, I know.
Has had a close relation with China going back to like the Mao period.
Yeah, there's so many parts going on here. So they were under a military dictatorship for many years, and then she was under house arrest.
Yeah.
Then in about 2016, when was it? She basically became prime minister or president, whatever the title is.
I think it was 2015.
Was it? Okay, whatever. So, yet again, this is a research-focused historical podcast. This is what we do. So, just trying to untangle it, though. And so she's effectively been deposed again by the same people who really never let go of the reins of power.
No.
I mean, the military there was still effectively in charge. She had a certain level of like civilian, quote-unquote, control, perhaps, that didn't really last as soon as, I guess, she tried to do anything. And the military were the ones who were ostensibly performing the genocide of the Muslim minority Rohingya.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Got through it. Geopolitics for twinks.
And both of them came to power after a U.S.-backed kind of like Tiananmen-esque color revolution in the country. But the student movement failed, and the military, who's now kind of in power, took the place instead. In place of the Burma Socialist something. I forget what it's called. Let me quickly look it up.
We're a research podcast.
I said to bring it up on my phone.
No, I know you will.
The Burma Socialist Program Party, which was not
BSPP.
really socialist. They were like a Buddhist nationalist state, but they believed in like a kind of centrally planned economy and autarky, so like self-determination. And I don't know if you knew this, but Burma, Myanmar, has a lot of natural resources like hydrocarbons, gems, rare woods, a labor force to exploit.
Right.
And they haven't fully privatized everything. There's still a lot of state-run industry in the country, which I think is always the thing where we need to privatize more. We need to open these markets more. We need to get all those fucking emeralds and sapphires out of Burma. And it's kind of hard. Like, there's not a good side to support in any of this. I feel like there's...
Well, you mean it's not just like a sports game where we just cheer on the good side against the bad side?
Yeah.
I don't understand. That's my only understanding of geopolitics.
And there's also like the whole issue of like, who is this really about? Because we don't really hear about the people. We don't hear from the actual populations in these countries. We just see pictures of them like flying pride flags and like, this means it's a good protest. We're not going to explain anything about who these people are or what they want.
Oh yeah, so what was that? You tweeted that, I think.
It was a Reuters journalist that showed a bunch of pictures of the small LGBT community in Myanmar flying pride flags and stuff.
So that was a general strike against the military.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, work. There's some good outfits in that photos, at least. I mean, look at this.
Right.
Like, that's hot. There's drag queens for democracy, apparently.
Right. It's illegal to be gay still there.
Well, as it should be. I mean, so at least they're doing something right.
Yeah. But it's just kind of this whole like nonsense. We're not really asking people. Like, there's no polls being shown like, oh, and it's really hard to do because it's a military state.
Sure.
But it's like, as journalists, which there is many in the country, like, wouldn't you be interviewing the local population to hear their viewpoints of who they actually want? Like, maybe they like the military. I don't know. Like, we don't know. It's really hard to tell, and it's just we're giving this spoon-fed nonsense where we're just being told what to think.
Right, and I think that's the main take-home point here. Right, is not like, here, let us help you pick a side in the Myanmar, domestic strife.
Right.
The thing is more about the degree to which sort of U.S. foreign policy just will readily tilt with the full complicity of a media apparatus that is all too ready to just start spoon-feeding these sympathetic stories that are coming almost directly from the State Department often, into just manufacturing consent for whatever sort of best maintains U.S. hegemony around the world. And then so there is no good or bad side, but there's a side that the U.S. prefers in power. And that is going to be the side you will see positively portrayed in the media, in the same way that Navalny is a hero of democracy right now. And the second he would, if let's say he managed to color revolution Putin out of power, whatever, with U.S. backing, well, the second he steps out of line and becomes inconvenient to U.S. hegemony, suddenly he will be Saddam Hussein.
Right.
This is how it always works, is these people are not so simple, but the U.S. always paints it as that simple.
And also many of these leaders, because I think people get confused, like, oh, why are you defending, like, I don't know, Syria or...
Because you're an Assadist. Next question.
Or like Belarus during the certain color revolutions. And it's not because I think any
you're
of them...
Lukashenkoist. Next question.
I don't think any of them are socialists or communists or the end goal, but I think even those local communist parties tend to support them because their primary contradiction is maintaining some sort of like sovereignty as a state. Like once you lose that, you're kind of just like fucked. Like,
well, you're a vassal state of sort of international finance capitalism and of U.S. hegemony, and that's it. You don't get to build a left wing in your country once the U.S. is in town, right? And everything in your country is owned by essentially international private corporate interests. And what hope is there?
Yeah, it kind of leads into the next one. So this is kind of a good example of what happens when the U.S. comes back in after you oust the kind of anti-imperialist government. So Ecuador just had elections after the horrible leadership of Lenin, not the good Lenin, but that's the Moreno Lenin, or Lenin Moreno, I'm sorry.
Lenin Moreno,
yeah. Who basically ran under a Correaist, which is Rafael Correa, the kind of like, think of Hugo Chavez or Evo Morales of Ecuador. And he basically raised living standards for everyone using the natural resources of the country. And then Correa runs on a similar ticket and then basically betrays all that, gives up Julian Assange, takes on IMF debt and privatization. And now the Correaist candidate, Andreas Arauz.
Yep.
I'm always bad at these names.
Andres Arauz?
Yeah.
Arauz? I don't know.
Looks like he's at least won majority in the first round. And apparently there is a second round. He's supposed to choose the top two.
They have to do a second ballot, yeah.
And that's in April.
Well, and the other guy is this kind of dude who's marketed as an eco-socialist in the U.S. Was it Yaku Perez Guartambel? I don't know if I said that right. But he's supposedly an eco-socialist, and yet everything we learn about him makes him more creepy and sinister. And he's the second place ballot winner. He will be on the ballot, I believe, for the next round.
Yeah, it looks like that because he looks like he outperformed so far it's like outright right-wing one,
right?
Who wasn't running on like a eco-socialist.
But what do we know about this guy? Because I keep seeing some stuff on Twitter about like his sort of murky past.
Yeah, so
I mean, I don't want to be a cliche just by calling everything an op, but like, is it an op?
Yeah, so Yaku, this eco-socialist guy whose really purpose was to split the left-wing vote, kind of like what Warren did. But clearly doesn't look like that because he won majority still.
Actually had popular support.
Yeah, but he's basically condemned every single like Bolivarian revolutionary state from Hugo Chavez, Evo Morales, and he's also extremely anti-growth. He endlessly critiqued the country's leadership under Rafael Correa for utilizing extraction and stuff under this idea of like indigeneity.
Right. So his whole thing is sort of being so he's an anti-mining protester who rose to prominence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of he's he holds a diploma in watershed management and population and a JD with specializations in indigenous justice, environmental law, criminal law, and criminology. Honestly, could be perfectly lovely. Who knows? But it's sort of interesting when you think about like, if you are trying to make inroads on the living standards of a Latin American country, then the kind of hands off the natural resources position is a particularly extreme one.
Yeah, and he's also, there was a really good Ben Norton piece on Gray Zone, basically exposing how his party and himself have close relations and financial support from, you know, all those lovely imperialist institutions in the U.S. And that's why we actually are hearing about him, because I think the popular way to attack the left wing in a lot of countries now is to even represent fake left wing. It's like one way to everyone's like, well, he's part of the socialist party. And it's like a lot of socialist parties are just neo-lib parties now in the world. It doesn't really mean anything, but everyone bought it because people don't want to do research. They don't want to investigate.
Yes, Jacinda Ardern was the president of the International Socialist Youth, just in case anybody was under any misapprehensions there about what that term means.
And also these people are very different. I think the left wing in Latin America gets greater appeal in Western circles because there's a lot more cultural crossover from, like, you know, we're all like settler colonialized like nations with like a lot of European influence and stuff. So a lot of those like values kind of cross over despite the language barrier. So they have to use like left wing things. It's like the Extinction Rebellion of like, Evo Morales hates the environment. Like Americans love this. Or American Petty Bouge love the growth is bad. And this is why this guy's a popular, because like they don't want mines and they don't want all these things, but like this is how they're gonna help people in their country.
Yeah, so he's described as part of the right wing faction of this particular party, and defends a flexible and open left hostile to the socialist policies of Rafael Correa. Pro-free trade with the US, for example.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so this is a pro-development candidate, but just whose specific prominence seems to be based on, you know, perhaps legitimate opposition to specific, you know, mining practices and things like that. Like, sure, that's a legitimate thing to have concern over. But it's yet again that the kind of the controlled narrative around somebody like this is that this must be the good one because look at him standing up to the big bad evil socialists. That's his political project.
He's also like anti like Russia and China and stuff, because China's been having greater influence, and many of these countries like Iran and Russia and China play bigger roles in helping assist nations being sanctioned in the region not completely like collapse and have more people die.
You mean doing neo-colonialism?
This man's also like insane. He'll do like bike commercials, like where he's riding bikes and stuff. And part of his thing is to reduce people having the right to buy cars in the country.
Hell yeah.
Which like appeals to like the YIMBY,
the DSA urbanist crowd who are like, I hate cars so much.
And cars aren't the issue. Like, what people should have more nice things. It's just like he wants people to stay poor, and he doesn't want them to use any of their wealth because Ecuador is rich in resources, and he just wants it to be like the lapdog of imperialism. Like, he's not good. And I bet you're gonna get like Jacobin people be like, I love him. He was the real choice all along. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's and I mean he got about 20%.
Yeah.
Which is not probably enough to win, I'm gonna guess, in the runoff. We'll see. But yes, there will be plenty of people on the American left who are just love him because he's the eco-socialist candidate that lost.
I think he's the
guy.
Indigenous, and people who blindly follow liberal identity politics are like, well, that means he's good.
Yeah, true.
That's not true at all, because if you look at U.S. involvement in places like Nicaragua and stuff, there has been indigenous groups backed by imperialist powers to fight against these progressive states.
Well, and yeah, that's the problem is that you can take legitimate grievances, perhaps, that certain indigenous groups have against, say, national or ethnic majoritarian governments, past, present, future. But yet again, it's about American tilt is where my concern comes in. I mean, those disputes are ongoing, and I'm sure there's right and wrong sides in them, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
It's when this sort of CIA wet workers start showing up and getting really excited about indigenous rights, a thing that the United States has never respected or given a shit about.
Yeah.
But when convenient, we'll suddenly start banging that drum real hard.
The anarchists also love like to get into that stuff.
Oh, well, that's just like ethno fetishism. That's just like the anarchists just love the idea of like the mythical time of living in perfect harmony with nature, and we're just all like smoking the peace pipe and living in teepees and shit. And they're like, it's a completely romanticized notion of
getting dysentery from like toxic water.
Yeah, well, and having your home and your lands annexed by just completely inbred European royal families.
Right. Like, why is this man not hardlining more the right wing who's reopened the country to foreign extraction stuff? Like, we all know it didn't stop under the right wing, so why is it only focused on the left wing one who actually wants to use the wealth to help the population?
Yeah, well, I mean, degrowth is going to degrowth, right?
Also, these people love to the Western world love to fixate on other countries' issues of like indigenous groups when there's like ones in their home. Like,
if only we had any of those here. I wish I could have something to invest my energies into.
We have like the Sami and like Scandinavia who get like these people going to like kind of like, well, we need to focus on people in like Latin America, like Greta Thunberg, like fucking supported Navalny, like because of a pipeline. Or you get like Australians and like New Zealanders be like, we must focus on all these other issues. I'm like, there's issues in your country. Like,
no, New Zealand. There's no. Let me be clear. There's no issues in New Zealand. Everything's actually perfect, and not the Maori who are complaining about their conditions. They're just mistaken.
It just drives me crazy. There's so many real issues in people's countries. They want to be invested in everyone else's pats. Like,
yes, which I think we've certainly done a decent attempt at for the last 10 minutes of trying to weigh into Ecuadorian electoral politics. But yet again, we have our own shitty electoral politics, which we also comment on. So checkmate. You haven't got us yet.
Yeah.
Should we wrap it up? Are we about done here?
Yeah, we're done.
Cool. All right. Well, see you all. We're gonna maybe have a nice little we're gonna have a fun little Valentine's Day up for you.
Yeah.
And that'll probably be the last San Francisco episode.
You're gonna hear me drunk again. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah. Singles Pride Day or whatever it is. All right, well, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.